Hello, and welcome to episode 17 of Project Slave 1. Sadly, this video will be the last in the Project Slave 1 series. I know many of you have watched from the very beginning and have enjoyed my journey from the original Gambody files through the redesigning to winning gold and best sci-fi model at Scale Model World last year. It's been quite a ride, and since then the rest of Slave 1 has been redesigned and we now have a complete standalone set of files with lots of great features. Thank you to everyone who supported my channel through this build. Your subscribing, likes and comments have really encouraged me to take Slave 1 to the next level. For the first time we have a model with a full interior, a rotating cockpit, rotating guns and wings, and an opening boarding door. In August, my local model club held its first model show in many years, and Slave 1 made an appearance on our club stand. It drew a crowd from clubs and the public alike. We had a great show and managed to raise a fair bit of cash for the local children's hospice as well. The feedback has been tremendous and a great day was had by all. I do have the next big build well planned already, and if you like Slave 1, I think you're going to love what's coming soon. Okay, let's get on with this episode. With all the parts now printed, cleaned up and fitting together, it's finally time for paint. First of all, everything has to get a coat of primer. All of these parts are painted in pale colours, so I'm going to use white primer for them. I'll just spray one side, let them dry, flip them over and spray the other side. This is a really good opportunity to check for any errors, such as areas of filler that need more work, rough edges or areas that need more filling and filing. Everything looks great with a coat of primer. I think I've worked out why I don't like painting. It marks the end of a project, and until then the finished model lives in your imagination, and it's so hard to achieve that image in reality. It also hides the story of what you went through to build the model, something that's my favourite stage. That's enough philosophy for one episode. Let's get back to the workbench. The rest of the parts were primed in grey, as they were all going to be painted in darker colours. The underside of the parts were primed first. I just used automotive rattle cans for priming. It works perfectly well and gives a good enough finish for me. Again, the parts were flipped and the upper faces then received a coat of primer. Of course, the main body had to be primed as well. With the cockpit masked off, the grey primer rattle can made another appearance. It's worth buying a decent primer that covers well and doesn't easily run. These Halford cans have a lot of paint in them, great adhesion and go a long way. To paint Slave 1, I was again going to use Archive X acrylics. I had enough of most colours left over from the first model to paint this one, but topped up the ones that were low, just in case. With the primer fully cured, I sprayed the white stripes down the side of the cockpit and the vertical stripe down the side of the upper hull. These were then masked off with 3mm wide 3M car styling tape, and the entire hull was sprayed with ILM DS Surface Grey. Next comes the fun bit. I really enjoy this stage, painting on the liquid masking fluid. I used Vallejo latex masking fluid and a cheap stiff plastic disposable brush. This is stippled on, trying to match the pattern of the studio model as closely as possible. Then it's out with the airbrush again, and the upper hull is given a coat of 1975 light green. It looks really bright right now, but we'll tone it down in a later stage. Once the green is fully dried, we can rub off all the latex masking fluid to hopefully leave a good random pattern behind. This is so satisfying. To tone down the green, the upper hull and shoulders are getting a mist coat of 1975 concrete. This really gets us back to a more sensible finish. The hull is masked off from the shoulders, which also get a few touches of the liquid latex. I used the 3M car tape to mask the shoulders, as it's great for laying down around complex curves like this. These areas were then backed up with regular masking tape. The shoulders are then sprayed with 1975 Coach Green. The right shoulder is masked with a splatter pattern with the liquid latex, ready for the next colour. Because the following colour is quite dark, this splatter pattern is best applied pretty heavily. 1975 Weyerhaeusen green is then sprayed over the coach green on the shoulders and on the masked panels of the spine. I tried to spray it unevenly on the shoulders to give more variation. Once everything's dried, we can take off all the masking on the upper hull and shoulders. Then it's onto the skirt section. This has to be masked off from the main hull before we go any further. The next stage is yet more masking. Here we're using the liquid latex to mask any areas we want to keep grey. I've carefully studied photos of the original model and tried to get the pattern as close as I can. Next, the lower skirt gets a coat of Aurora pink. It may look pretty weird, but you won't see much of this in the final result, so don't panic just yet. With the pink dry, it's time for more liquid latex over the top. This is just to preserve the areas we want to stay pink. These are quite extensive, so take your time. Finally, the skirt gets a coat of boxcar red. One of the great things about Slave 1's colour scheme is that you don't have to be an airbrush wizard, as most spraying errors will just blend in with the crazy patterns. Once the red is dry, we can rub off all the latex to reveal the pattern that lies beneath. With all the masking removed, I felt the colours were a bit too vibrant, so I gave the shoulders and skirt a light dusting of concrete to tone it all down. I find that artists' oils work well for weathering and panel washes, so went for a combination of burnt umber and French ultramarine, heavily thinned over the entire model. Then I took on the rest of the parts. The lower engine details were painted grimy black, with sections picked out in Weyerhaeusen green, DS surface grey and other colours. The engines were based in armour yellow, latex masked and sprayed with rust. With the latex removed, they were dry brushed with an acrylic bronze and then given a misting of black to the base to blend them in. The engine cores were sprayed gloss black and then given a coat of the amazing Molotow liquid chrome. The guns were sprayed DS surface grey, with the barrels painted grimy black. Everything was then oil washed and the barrels dry brushed with some chainmail acrylic. The oval engine was painted in the same way as the others, and the dummy bulbs were also painted with liquid chrome. The clear sections are acrylic tube to allow for LED lights. This bulb unit can also be printed as one part if you aren't going for the LED lighting. The antenna was painted concrete, with the boss in Weyerhaeusen green and the shroud in DS surface grey. Again, everything got a dose of oils and the odd bit of dry brushing for more variation. The wings were painted with a 6:1 mix of reefer white and armour yellow. This was over areas of armour yellow that were liquid masked. With everything dried, oil washes were again applied. Here you can see how the wing rotates and the rams extend and contract. The rams are made from brass tubing, as you have seen in the previous videos. You can also see the aluminium tube that serves as a spar and supports the wing and rotating arm. The underside of the hull was painted DS surface grey and then heavily weathered with oils. This area would never get cleaned in reality, so filth was the way to go. I painted the floor black so it would be hidden if any small areas showed through the hull parts. And here's the main hull. This was fully weathered with oils and blaster marks were added to the rear in grimy black with a fine paintbrush. Everything was now of a similar tone, with the saturation now down to a reasonable level. By now I'd also painted the inside of the shoulders and the mounts for the wing arms. These mechanical areas got a lot of weathering, as I figured cleaning wasn't a high priority on Boba's to-do list. Creating variation in colour and tone is the key to making this paint job sing. The latex masking helps a lot, but the oils really finish the job. So, with everything painted, let's see the completed model. Well, here it is, my ultimate Slave 1. A fully detailed interior, a working rotating cockpit, rotating wings, rotating guns, a boarding ramp that can be in the lowered or flight positions, and an opening entry door. I am so pleased how this model came out. I'm glad I went the extra mile and redesigned the hull to create my very own set of standalone files for Slave 1. For me, it was well worth the effort. I learned a lot over the past couple of years on Project Slave 1 and have developed my skills to the point where I'm confident enough to take on another big build. The underside and interior is packed with detail and the whole model matches the original studio model not only in dimensions but in colour and finish to the best of my ability. I had another stand made to the same dimensions as before, and finally mounted Slave 1 to be permanently displayed in my office. This is the end of my Slave 1 journey. I can assure you I won't be making another Slave 1. But you can. Lots of you guys have asked if the files will be available for sale. Well, they are now. All of the files I designed are now available to purchase through my website. There's a link in the description. This is a complete standalone set, so you don't need to buy anything else, just resin, glue, paint and hardware. As you can see, there are a lot of parts to print, 145 to be exact. This is a complex model to build, but well worth the effort. The files come with a comprehensive set of instructions, a printing guide, hardware list, plans for the stand, decal artwork for the interior, drawings for the rams, and a painting guide with photographs of the finished model. Of course, if you get stuck, there's always the videos to refer back to. Coming in at almost 10 kilos, it uses a lot of resin. This is certainly a statement model and could be the centerpiece of any Star Wars collection. So what comes next? Well, I do have another big project coming very soon, but there are also a few gems in my stash that I'm desperate to build. I need to make space for the next build, and getting some of the other models made will definitely give me the room I need. My next video will explain all, show you what I have planned, and announce the next big project. I hope you've enjoyed Project Slave 1. If you have, please share with your friends, and make sure you subscribe to my channel, it really helps me out a lot. So you catch my next video when it goes live, click on the bell icon. To learn about some of the techniques I use, check out my how-to series to find out more about moulding, casting, CAD design and 3D printing. If you have any questions about Project Slave 1, just leave them in the comments and I'll get back to you. Thanks for watching.